Hi, I'm Miss Brii from Wonderland Performing Arts. Welcome to Musical Theater Voice Class. So what we're going to be doing today is just a kind of brief introduction of information that you should kind of know as you're beginning to get into musical theater, and maybe some big words you haven't heard before, and this might be stuff that you already know and it'll just be a fun refresher. So as I said before, I'm Miss Brii. I got my degree in vocal music education, and I teach elementary music as well as teaching private voice lessons and voice classes to kids of all ages. So we're going to be starting with the very first thing, voice types. So luckily I have my handy dandy whiteboard here. So we're starting with voice types. Now when we talk about voice types, we're talking about the classification of voices from highest to lowest. That's where we're gonna go. We're gonna start with the highest. So very first we have a soprano. Sopranos, let me spell it right. Sopranos are the highest singing female voice. So you may have even heard of a boy soprano, which is normally a young boy before puberty who can sing up into the stratosphere because he hasn't had that voice change yet. So a soprano, again, is the highest voice type. I consider myself a soprano when I'm singing opera because I can push my head voice way high up into like high D's, E's, and F's. And then I also have a pretty good lower range in my chest voice, but when I sing primarily in my head voice, I am considered a soprano. So sopranos are the highest singing women's voice, right? So then let's go to the next one. A mezzo-soprano. M-E-Z-Z-O, soprano. Now, mezzo-soprano, and we say mezzo like we'd say pizza, mezzo-soprano. Mezzo literally means middle or medium in Italian. So when we think of mezzo-soprano, it's a middle soprano. So a middle soprano, a mezzo-soprano, has more flexibility in their middle range to lower range. They're a bit stronger. Now that doesn't mean that they can't sing high notes. Lots of mezzo-sopranos have a range that go all the way up above high C and then down below into bass clef. Isn't it crazy how wide a woman's range can be? But yeah, that's a mezzo-soprano. Mezzo-sopranos normally have a lot darker voices too, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So we've got a mezzo-soprano, and then at the bottom of the women's range we have a contralto. A contralto. Now, a contralto is a woman that sings very low, very low. I mean, if you listen to opera, you might not know that she's a woman unless you see her. A contralto is the lowest singing woman's voice. So they can use their chest and lower head voices to go way down and sing some woofy notes. So that's not really something that I'm capable of, but contraltos are really cool. They can sing some really cool stuff. So that's the lowest singing voice of a female. All right, so then we get to the highest singing voice of a male, which has about the same range as a contralto, and that's a countertenor. They're so similar, in fact, in range that I'm going to put them together. All right, so contralto and countertenor. Countertenors are also called falsettists. The highest singing male voice, they're normally singing in their falsetto, which is their head voice. It's very similar to a woman's head voice, but it is classified a little bit differently because of the different ways of singing for men and women. And so we have a contralto and a countertenor. I'm sorry, I have hair stuck behind my glasses. Contralto and countertenor. So then we have a tenor. So a tenor is like a soprano, just for men. It's their highest singing without the countertenor, who's a falsettist also. So this would be the highest a man can sing in his natural chest voice. That is a tenor. So once we go down below tenor, we have baritone. So baritones are similar to mezzo-sopranos in that they can sing right in between a tenor, lower tenor, high bass. Yeah, mezzo can sing, well, mezzo can sing anything a soprano can sing for the most part, but mezzos can sing lower soprano, higher contralto. A baritone can sing lower tenor, higher bass. So there are lots of wonderful pieces for baritones and lots of very wonderfully talented baritones, even in this area. So then we have bass. A bass is the lowest man's voice. It's that deep, low, woofy voice, just like we talked about with a contralto in women. We have a bass. So if you're in choir, I'm sure you've heard of soprano, alto, tenor, bass. So we don't like to use alto when we're talking about voice types. We're going to talk about alto as a choir part. But as voice types, we like to classify ourselves as soprano, mezzo-soprano, contralto, countertenor, tenor, baritone, and bass. And that's going from the highest at the top to the lowest at the bottom. Yeah. So, think about your natural speaking voice. What do you think your natural speaking voice sits at? Is it different than your singing voice? I know, before I started music school, I used my speaking voice very roughly. And so my speaking voice was much lower than my singing voice. And I thought it was so funny, and people who met me didn't understand how the voice that came out of me when I was singing came out of me. And it wasn't until later that I realized I had been talking really roughly in my chest voice, and it was causing me to get hoarse after a while, because I like to talk. I can talk a lot. That's why I like to do videos like this, because I can talk a lot. So yeah, we have to be careful how we use our speaking voices and how our speaking voices sound compared to our singing voices. So now my speaking voice is a bit higher. I try to make sure that I speak on it a lot lighter so that I don't get hoarse as often. And now it's not as surprising when a soprano note comes out of me. So these are the voice types. These are the things that you'll be classified in your voice lessons when you're looking for repertoire. It's an easy way to kind of figure out what kind of range you want to sing if you know what voice type you like to sing. So if you like to sing soprano, you know that the repertoire that you choose is going to be soprano repertoire, and it's going to be higher in range. Or if you choose mezzo-soprano repertoire in musical theater, it'll be more of a belting range, yeah? All right, and the same goes for men. If you sing more high, our younger boys like to sing tenor songs, and then as your voice changes, you can find yourself entering more into baritones and bass. Yeah, super fun stuff. So I'm just gonna erase this. Next, we're going on to tessitura. Tessitura. Have you ever heard that word before? Tessitura. I'll write it here for you so you can see it. Tessitura, that's our word. So this is the comfortable range of a singer, or the pitch range of a song. So if a song is a soprano song, you know it's going to sit at a higher tessitura. So the most comfortable place for you to sing is your tessitura. If your voice falls in a higher tessitura, soprano, and a more medium tessitura, maybe mezzo-soprano, and then in a lower tessitura, contralto or something like that. So it is the first step in kind of figuring out what kind of music to look for your voice type is figuring out your tessitura. So sit down at a piano and plunk out some notes and just see how high you can go and write them down. See just like how wide is your range, how far up the piano can you go, how far down the piano can you go, and then kind of figure out your tessitura from there so that when you're picking a song to sing, you know what range you're most comfortable with, yeah? So tessitura. That's a good one. Let's keep that word in mind. So the next one that we're going to talk about helps us get into subtypes. So we already voice typed. We know soprano, alto, tenor, bass. Now we're going to get into subtypes. And this is where it can get a little bit confusing. So try to stay with me. So next we're going to talk about our natural vocal weight. Natural vocal weight. Have you ever heard of your vocal weight? Did you know that your voice had a weight to it? I mean, we know that our actions speak louder than our words, but our words can carry weight to it in meaning, but I'm talking more about how your voice carries, how your voice travels through air and things like that. That's what we're talking about when we talk about weight. So if you have kind of a light, shimmery, like it's a light voice, high voices can be very light. They can be more on the breath and flowy, and coloratura sopranos are a very light voice. And then we can also have very heavy voices like Wagnerian sopranos in opera, and more of the mother roles in musical theater tend to have more of a heavy sound to them because an aged voice tends to get heavier, yeah? So that's where we talk about weight. It's the place where your voice resonates the most. All right, so wherever you find that your voice carries the farthest, that's really where the weight of your voice is the most balanced, yeah? So you can have a light voice or a heavy voice. I have a very light voice, as you can tell just from when I speak, very light and flowy. Most men have a bit more of a heavy voice, depending on where they speak. Even some women have heavier voices than I do. I know that for sure. All right, and then we're gonna get down to the next subtype. Before we really talk about subtypes of songs and classifications, we're gonna talk about timbre. So that's not what it looks like. I'm gonna write it for you because timbre doesn't look like that's what it should say. It looks more like timbre, but it's timbre. So the timbre of your voice is the color of your voice. Now, how does your voice have a color? You can't see it. That's where we talk about sound color. And so sound color is a much bigger theory than what we're gonna delve into here. But whenever we're talking about the color of your voice, it's very similar to relating it to the weight of your voice. Bright colored voices tend to have a shimmer, a spark to them. Coloratura sopranos are a great example. I know I use them a lot. I am one, it's easier to relate, so I apologize. What's another one? A beautiful tenor voice. Especially musical theater tenors, sometimes they can get so bright and then sometimes they can get so brassy, and that's a different color, right? So it's a wide range of colors that you can see. We have darker colors and darker and heavier voices, like I mentioned before, the Wagnerian sopranos have darker, heavier voices. And we also have not every case is the same with colored voices though, right? So when we think about the color of our voice, we think, okay, light and airy or bright. If it's a bright voice, it must be light and airy, it must be a soprano, but that's not necessarily true. Mezzo-sopranos can have beautiful bright voices, just like sopranos can have darker voices. A soprano with a more darker tone color can sometimes be a lyric soprano and sing more lyric, emotional things because that color translates very well in the message that they're trying to convey. So I think that's pretty cool that we can think about color when we're talking about our voices, don't you? So lots of different songs have different colors to them. And lots of different voices have different colors to them. And it's very important to make sure that whenever you're singing, you're using your natural voice weight. Modifying your voice weight or your tone color over time, if you do it consistently, can actually very much damage your vocal folds, which is not something we want to do because we want to keep singing. And if we want to keep singing, we can't do anything to our singing machine, right? Right. So we've got tessitura, natural voice weight, and timbre. These are all things that we kind of listen to in ourselves when we're trying to figure out what we want to sing. So I know for my voice, I have a higher tessitura. My chest voice can go pretty low though, so in musical theater I have a much wider range than I do in other places. And then my natural voice weight is very bright. I tend to get told in choir that I need to darken a bit more because I tend to sing a bit brighter than everybody else does, and that's okay. And modifying a little bit when you're in choir is no big deal. But whenever you're trying to change your voice weight to make your voice sound much darker than it is when you're singing all the time, that's when you can run into some issues. So then we have timbre. So I know I have a brighter voice, a lighter voice. I don't carry as far or as loudly as others, which makes my voice lighter in weight. And then I have very high range. My head voice is very pingy because I'm a soprano, so I know that that's a very bright tone color. But then let's talk about another voice. So a voice that I like to talk about when referencing timbre is another female voice that's very different from mine. And though we can sing similar repertoire, we still have very different colors and timbres, and that is that of Idina Menzel. We all know Idina, we do, or as John Travolta once called her, Adele Dazeem. Yes. So Idina Menzel plays the voice of Elsa in Frozen, which I'm sure you've seen a couple of times. It's come out on Disney Plus since the quarantine started. She also plays in the Rent movie. She plays in Enchanted as the protagonist, as Patrick Dempsey's girlfriend. She's played in a bunch of stuff. If you look up her picture, I'm sure you've seen her before. So Idina Menzel, when she first started her career, she's a belting soprano, she belts the most, and she had more of an even voice weight when she was belting, which made her voice carry so far. It was so beautiful. and her color was it's a bit darker. It's a bit of a darker color, which is why whenever she was playing Elphaba in Wicked, it complemented that music a lot more, yeah? So there were parts when she would modify so that her voice would sound a bit brighter depending on the song, but otherwise she has a very dark tone color to her voice when she's singing. I found listening to, I've seen Frozen 2 about 8 times now. Don't ask what I'm doing during the quarantine, and I won't ask what you're doing. But I've seen Frozen about 6 times now. So I find in the song Show Yourself, there are some very beautiful moments when the darkness and the just natural weight of her voice carry so much of the feeling and the emotion of the song, and it's just so fitting for that character and for that part, and it's so fun to listen to. It's like, Show Yourself is better than Into the Unknown, and that's just the tea. Anyway, so now that we kind of understand what to look for in voice types, whenever we're listening to ourselves singing, we want to find our voice type, and we find our voice type through our tessitura, yeah, so we know our tessitura, our comfortable range of singing. And then we have our vocal weight, natural vocal weight. Is it a brighter song? Is it a darker song? Is it a, well, I guess that would be color. Is it a lighter song? Is it a heavier song? You know, you can kind of decide from there. And then timbre. Is it brighter? Is it darker? Is it, I don't know. Sometimes what I used to like to do is even assign a color. Well, I think this song feels, yellow. How do I sound yellow? Yellow's kind of a bright color, but it can get a little, you know, dark and icky at times, so you can think of it that way too. Think of it as an actual color and then visualize and try to feel what you think that color would sound like. It's one of my favorite things to do when I'm practicing singing. So, now that we kind of figured out the steps to finding what kind of voice type we have and what kind of books we need to be looking in for songs, we've got that. So I'm sure you've seen a musical theater anthology or a book for sopranos, a book for young sopranos or young tenors or young baritones or young mezzo-sopranos. Young belters is a big one. Whenever you're looking through those books, you kind of have an idea now. Well, okay, well, I know my voice sounds more like this color or like brighter or maybe darker, and so you can kind of go from there whenever you're picking your song. Now, let's talk about the different song types. So we're going to move away from voice because we've kind of figured out, like, all right, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, contralto, countertenor, baritone, something. All right, let's try to find a song. So, find your musical theater anthology, find your Sondheim for sopranos, find your Young Belters book, find whatever book fits your voice, and try to figure out what you're feeling. You could sing a ballad. A ballad is a song that has a lot of feeling and is normally a bit slower and just, it's a song full of feeling. That's how I always think of a ballad. It's a big moment to just let your feelings out or express a feeling or confess a feeling or something like that, yeah? Then we have an upbeat song. So an upbeat song is about exactly as you think. You might also see up-tempo. So, do we know what tempo is? Tempo is the speed of the song. So, if we think it's up-tempo, it's a faster tempo. That's it. Your upbeat songs are your bit more faster tempo. Sometimes they tell a story or they kind of explain something that happened in a really fun way. And then you have a charm song. Charm songs. This is where my boys are really gonna find their bread and butter. Charm songs are aplenty for young men. And men in general, honestly, because they're always trying to just serenade someone and, you know, lure someone into their clutches, and so they have charm songs. Charm song makes you feel love for the character. It's the character expressing love for another. Then we have character songs. Character songs are my favorite. Character songs normally require a good bit of acting. This is an acting heavy kind of song. So I love to sing character songs because you really get to throw yourself into the character and you get to express fun things, and normally there's little funny moments and there's a lot more personality to a character song. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we've got a lot of personality to convey and show and just kind of interpret through the music. And the music, like I said, the song is written that way. So the song does a lot of the hard work for you. It's up to you to really make it a moment, right? Yeah. And then we have the 11 o'clock number. So the 11 o'clock number, or it's also known as the showstopper, which kind of gives away what an 11 o'clock number is, doesn't it? The showstopper 11 o'clock number is the big song. It's big, it's flashy, it's in your face, it's everything and nothing all at the same time. It's a beautiful moment. Yeah. So the 11 o'clock number, the reason why they call it an 11 o'clock number is because the show normally started at about 8:45, which means that it would be over at about, 11:15, 11:30. So the 11 o'clock number was the showstopper. It's the one that brought them right back into the story right before the end so that they would come back next time. They would come back tomorrow or maybe again the next day. You were trying to pull the audience in so that they would come back and see you again. So that is our 11 o'clock number, or showstopper. So whenever you are looking for music, it's very important to kind of have an idea of what you want. Or if you go in with no idea, then at least have the open mind to be able to explore and know that the journey is endless. There's so much that you can find out there. There's so much out there for you to find. There's not just Wicked and Les Mis and Phantom of the Opera. There's so much more out there that you should explore. So I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to find a song, any of these kinds of songs. I want you to figure out your voice type and a song. If you can figure those two things out by next week, I want you to leave the comment down below in whatever platform you're seeing me on, and I'm gonna check them out. I want to see what songs you find and what you've discovered about yourself. Take the next week to just play with a piano. Get a piano app on your phone. I have Virtuoso on my iPad. I know you got your iPads and your computers. Virtual piano is on the computer. You can use your keyboard keys to play, so you can just play through some notes and feel your way through the music. It's fun. Maybe look up some old musical theater songs, something beyond just the things that you listen to all the time, like Hamilton and Mean Girls, and try to look for something a little bit older. Try to find something new to you. It doesn't have to be new to the world, it just has to be new to you, and chances are if it came out before 1980, it'll probably be new to you. So, venture out, find something that you haven't heard before, and maybe even try to learn it. Just add to your repertoire. That'll be our word for the day. Our word for today is repertoire. I know we've learned a lot of words today, so adding a word to the day seems a bit redundant, but I promise this word's going to come in handy later. So this word, repertoire. Can you guess what language that is? So repertoire is like your accumulation of songs, or the song that you're singing right now, or songs that you're working on. So I know, like, my repertoire of music, I like to think of as all of the music that I've chosen, but whenever I'm coming somewhere with a prepared repertoire, it could be just a few pieces that I have on me at the time, or whatever pieces I definitely have prepared to sing at any given moment, which means that I don't need a refresher. I could just hop in and sing it without any refreshers or warnings. I try to keep a couple of songs in my brain like that, so that if there's ever a moment when I want to hop into an audition, I'm ready, which is a good idea, planning in the future. A repertoire, it is the music that you sing or learned. Yeah, or just working on. If you're working on a new piece of repertoire, you're adding a new piece to your repertoire, you can consider it the inventory of songs that you already know, yeah? And I like to think of repertoire as songs that we've studied, so not just songs that we learned on the radio. I'm not just gonna add every Paramore song in their discography to my repertoire, even though I know every single word to every single song. Of course, it would be nice and it would look real impressive, but I don't consider that part of my repertoire because it's not something that I worked on, and it's, it's different. So my musical theater repertoire is separate from my classical repertoire, but sometimes I keep them together just for the sake of having a big repertoire. So I'm gonna add that to your challenge. So, your voice type, a song, and use the word repertoire in a sentence to the best of your ability. I wanna see. I just wanna hear the beautiful sentences that you're going to compose for me, all right? Well, now that we've kind of gotten through everything for today, let's do a little review. Whoa, all right, calm down, whiteboard. This thing's trying to take a dive on me. So we started with the voice types. So we remember 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 voice types. Yeah, 7 voice types. So start from highest to lowest. Soprano, mezzo soprano. What's next? Contralto, countertenor, tenor. Oh, what's next? I know it starts with a B. Baritone. And bass. And that's from the tippity top to the tippity bottom. All right? And then we had our other new words. Tessitura. Good. What else? Our natural vocal weight. Can't forget that one. And timbre. That's right. That tricky word that looks like timber. Timbre. And then we learned about our song types. So we've got our how to classify your voice, your voice classifications, and then we move on to song. So let's see, what's a type of song type we discussed today? A ballad. Good, a song full of feeling and I love ballads, they're so fun. And then we have up-tempo, an up-tempo song, a fast song, or just a song that keeps a good beat, a good steady quick beat. All right, our charm song. Charm songs. One of my favorites is the Shmuel song from the last 5 Years musical. Comedy. Oh, we skipped comedy songs. Oh my goodness, where is my head? We skipped comedy songs. I can't believe we did that. So let's go over comedy songs real quick. So if a song is called a comedy song, what do you think it's called a comedy song for? Do you think maybe it's because it's funny? I think it's because it's funny. Yeah, it's called a comedy song because it's funny. It's your comic relief in the show. It's a fun little ditty that'll get you laughing. And, you know, maybe it'll change the mood of the whole musical depending on where the events before and the events after take you. So it could be a pivotal moment, or it could just be a really good way to get laughs to kind of break the seriousness of a serious story. Yeah? So let's add comedy. Can't believe I forgot comedy song. How funny of me. Haha. All right, and then we have our character song. Oop, I hope I don't run out of room. Our character songs. My favorite character song is Pulled from the Addams Family musical. It's a blast to sing. Don't care who you are. And then our showstopper. Showstopper. Now, are these every single type of song in musical theater? I don't think so. I don't think it's really possible to classify every song in musical theater into like 5 categories, 6 categories. I mean, you also have patter songs, which are more speak, sing kind of songs, and there's lots of other things, like there's lots. Music is a massive spectrum of things that have been created. There's rap songs. Come on, like I didn't put that up there, but that's still a song, and it's a very valid song in musical theater. So it's such a wide range. In musical theater, it's such this beautiful rainbow of creative juices and just culminations of creative people that there's really no way to categorize all of it into little boxes, right? And what happens when you put an artist in a box anyway? There's no room to create. So make sure you don't stick yourself in a box, no matter what this tells you. Never stick yourself in a box. If you're a tenor and you want to sing a soprano song, change the key. Musicnotes.com. Transpose. It's the best. You have the freedom to just express yourself. Whatever song you relate to, find one. Sing it. Record it. I'll watch it. In fact, it might be coming soon. All right? Well, you guys, it's been very fun this week. I can't wait to see you again next week. We've got lots of stuff in store about how to prep songs and auditioning and performing and just lots more stuff to know about musical theater voice. Again, I'm Miss Brii with Wonderland Performing Arts, and I hope you tune in again next week. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Stay home, stay safe, and bye, you guys.